Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Rob.
And this is Ask Rob and Rob.
Yes, it is Ask Rob and Rob. It's a show where we pick two of your questions and we give them answers. We're going to be doing that for Ed and Jonathan today, but first, a quick reminder of how you send your own question our way.
It's so easy. You go to propertyhub.net/ask, and there you have an array of options. You can write in with your question, and you may have it answered in the Sunday Times, or appear on the Property Podcast by getting your question in through the method of audio. But we make that easy as well, because you can record through your computer, or you can call and leave us a voicemail. So very, very simple. So simple, in fact, that we've had two people, once again, follow that format. First in, we've got a question in from Ed.
Hi, Rob and Rob. Ed here, long-time listener. Just want to first of all say thank you for everything that you put out there. It's certainly helped me on my property journey. I'm a Property Hub Invest customer. Bought a couple of properties through that with yourselves. And it's actually around that kind of strategy that my question's about. So I do buy into the buying for long-term growth, the capital appreciation. As long as it's making a positive cash flow, I kind of don't mind, because I work and that can provide me with revenue for the time being. However, one of the properties that I got through yourselves, so high-end, high capital growth, there's a national company that's approached me about possibly using it as a holiday let. Now, this company is not a fly-by-night kind of company. It's a recognised supplier of major national accredited landlord association, and I'm pretty certain that it's not a kind of a con or anything like that. What they're selling is legit, and it's around that. So at the moment, the property is on a long-term let. It's decent enough. It gives me a little bit of cash flow, only a little bit. It's quite low on the ROI, to be totally honest, but we purchased during the mini budget period, so the mortgage isn't as good as what we expected, but it's still positive. However, this company, for the exact same amount, which is 12%, which the current letting agents are charging, for that amount they anticipate getting in double to possibly even triple the amount of revenue that it's currently generating. And for that, they deal with absolutely everything. They effectively take it off your hands, and they just deal with all of the cleaning, all of the bookings, all of that. So from my point of view, the expense is the same. There's 12% of the revenue, and they're looking at double or tripling. Now, I'm still holding the high-end capital appreciating property, but I'm benefiting from far more revenue, which then I can obviously invest into other properties. Am I missing something, or is this a possible strategy? Because I've always thought of the strategy to be long-term lets, high capital appreciation, but if this can be done with very little work on my part, because I'm a hands-off investor, effectively it looks too good to be true. So I'm thinking I must be missing something, but your help and guidance on this would be appreciated. Thank you.
Ed, thank you for your question. So you want to know, basically, can you have the best of both worlds? Can you have this high-end, high-potential growth property and sweat it for its income in the meantime? The answer, I would suggest, sadly, is probably not. And I'll explain why that's the case. The first reason is you've definitely got a mortgage, because you've said you do. This is almost guaranteed to be a breach of your mortgage terms. They will not be happy with you renting the property out to anything other than someone occupying the property as their main home. Feel free to have a look at the actual wording of the mortgage terms in case I'm wrong, but I think that's unlikely. Also, the property may be an apartment, and if it is, then it's likely to be a breach of your lease to do that as well. May not be, but most of the time it is. So that's potentially two big barriers there. Even if those barriers weren't in case, is this something you want to do? For me, it would be a case of balancing the potential extra income against the potential extra risk. So you're not holding this property with a view primarily on income anyway. Otherwise, you wouldn't have bought a property like this. And this is the same kind of strategy as mine as well. You need to have positive cash flow. You like it if it were more, but that's not the sole reason for your investment. If you could get twice as much, yeah, of course you would. But in this case, doing so introduces extra risk. There's the risk that you may get less income, which maybe isn't the biggest deal if you weren't buying for the income anyway. But there's also the risk of significant wear and tear and damage to the property, which is probably more of a concern. And even if my negative version of things doesn't play out, one way or another, there will be more hassle and more uncertainty. And is it worth it, is what I would be asking myself. The view that I would take on this, and I also own properties that I bought at around that same time when mortgage rates were really high, and I'm making very little money on them. But I know that even if I refinance them today, my mortgage rate would be a lot better. I can't refinance now because I'm in a fixed term, but I would hope and expect that by the end of the fixed term, things will be a little bit better again. So my cash flow will immediately be double what it is today. And over the long arc of my investment, if the capital growth thesis plays out, and even if it doesn't play out to the extent I think it will because of inflation reducing the value of the mortgage, a little bit of extra money over a couple of years will make basically no difference in the grand scheme of things. So that'd be my view on things, Ed. Yours might be different, but even if you do want to go down this route, I would suspect that you'll be prevented by your mortgage terms or your lease or both. So definitely look into those before going any further.
And you were delivered a value bomb there. Next up is a question in from Jonathan. Jonathan, let's see if I can also help.
Hi, Rob and Rob. It's Jonathan here from Saudi Arabia. I want to first thank you both for the content you deliver on the pod free of charge, week in, week out. Myself and my partner took the plunge and embarked on our property investment journey as a result of the great content that you share. And I am proud to say that we are Property Hub Select clients with completion on a property you sourced for us in Halifax taking place in the coming weeks. My question is related to an investment property that we already have in Derby. We were fortunate enough to invest in a great development in the city centre with strong tenant demand. Within 2 days of completion, we had our first tenants in who were fully checked and had a guarantor in place, and we were very happy. Fast forward a few months, and we are unfortunately in a position where the tenants are in arrears with their rent. They are essentially disputing the amount of rent per month that they agreed to, claiming that they were told it was £50 less than what they signed up for. Our lettings management agent says they don't understand why, as they actually signed the tenancy agreement, which of course we have copies of. The agents have attempted to have the tenants pay the full amount, but without any luck. It has now been 2 months where the tenants have only paid the amount they believe to be correct, as opposed to what is on the agreement. The agent says that they will issue a breach letter in the hope that this will resolve the issue. But based on the tenant's response so far, I think it's unlikely that this will do anything. Of course, we know that the agreement itself is binding and they should be paying the full amount as stated. This is our first experience with a situation of our tenants being in arrears, and it would be great to hear from you as to how you think we should handle the situation. For the sake of £50 per month, is it really something that we should be pursuing, or should we just take the hit and wait for the tenancy to run the remainder of its term, which is another 8 months, and at that point decide not to renew it and get new tenants in? Thank you very much in advance, and keep up the great work.
Jonathan, thank you for your question. Thank you for your trust as well. I'm sure your investment in Halifax will do very well. But let's try and work on your property in Derby. And I love this show because each week there's a question that comes up and I'm like, I've never had this before. And again, I've never had this. I've had rental arrears questions hundreds of times, if not thousands of times. A question where the tenant is deliberately paying short a small amount each and every month is a first for me. But let's try and help. Now, from a principal's point of view, you may want to challenge this tenant. And I can completely understand that. They're going against what they signed up to. They're either playing silly or they're stupid or a bit of both. It's just not cricket. It's just not a nice situation and they are not behaving well. However, even though it's frustrating, I don't think it's worth pursuing at the amounts that fallen short on each month, because the time you'll invest, the money you'll potentially invest to get them out will be a reasonable amount. But also, it's going to be quite challenging to get them out because they're not that much in arrears. They haven't even totaled up a whole month's worth of rent yet. So with that in mind, I'm going to give you a different view and a different way to approach this. So you can absolutely try and go after them, but instead wait until the tenancy ends. If they continue just to fall short by £50 each and every month, get them out as soon as the tenancy ends, and from their deposit, take the £50 a month back. Now, of course, you have to hope that there's no damage, so the deposit there doesn't need to cover anything else. But if they have generally looked after the property, then there should be enough money there to make up the shortfall, or the majority of, at least. And that is the way I'd approach it. A slightly different approach, but probably the most efficient way to approach it. You could also contact the guarantor and see if the letting agent can speak to them, or you speak to them directly to say, hey, you've backed this person and this is what they're playing at. Depending on that person, that may or may not go well. That person may have a word with that tenant, particularly if they think it's not going to look good for them, and the fact that they're backing that rent, you can put that to them. So that is another approach. So they're the two approaches I would consider attempted to claim the minor shortfall that's in place through our legal system, I just wouldn't bother with. But of course, Jonathan, you may feel strongly about this and you may feel that you should, and that's completely fine. I understand that. But I think there's 2 more efficient ways to approach it, and hopefully you can use one of them and be successful. Best of luck.
That is a bizarre situation there, Jonathan, but you got some advice now that hopefully you can put to good use. So thank you to Jonathan and Ed for sending their questions in. If you'd like to send a question of your own, you can do that at propertyhub.net/ask. And we'll see you back here on Thursday for the Property Podcast. Until then, have a great week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.